Hey guys, welcome to the ATB Breakdown for week 8, which is just Monday and Tuesday respectively. Since this was our essay turning week, we only have 2 to go through. That being said, I want to get you guys thinking about the last ATB Breakdown that's going to happen. So next Friday, the assignment will still be there to do a discussion, kind of share out of what you did for ATB corrections. However, I'm going to offer a different option for participating and getting your points if you don't want to do the discussion posting. For my power hour that I run from noon to 1 on Friday, I'm going to use that time, part of it at least, to do the ATB breakdown for the week. It may not span an entire hour. We'll probably have some time to chat and just catch up with each other for the last ATB stuff of the year. But the deal there is if you come in, you participate in the discussion of the ATBs for the week, you ask a great question, you comment on somebody else's change or ask them a question about it, you get points for what would have been your discussion posting participation, because you will be fulfilling both sharing your idea out and probably adding on or asking something of another person's correction. So if you're not able to make noon to 1 work, the good news is I will record the breakdown conversation for Peer Power Hour and still post that up for the discussion. That'll mean that you'll have a little bit of extended time to complete that if you are not available, since I will be posting it later in the day. All of that said and done, let's just go ahead and get into it this week, and then let's get into discussing and see what you did. So, number 1. Are you ready for the hockey game? My brother asked, 2 tickets in their hand. Okay, and I read this part in a very specific way. Hopefully you caught it. We have a direct quotation here, and we know that for a couple reasons. You have this as an indicator of a speaker, especially with the verb of asked, and then kind of the way that it's being framed here right before the subject of the sentence. You also have that questioning intonation or the sound of it. This is also known as an interrogative, okay? Just the root of that, to interrogate, to ask a question. So that's the type of quote that you have. Later on in the sentence, you have what they did in the original, which is their. The problem being that is a group pronoun. And we know that we're talking about this person right here, and it is a person, not a people. So you do singular and you do presumably male because of the relationship in the sentence. So a couple changes made for this sentence, not much else to it. Except for this, because it's talking about sports, and you know, I know so much about sports. I don't. In any case, continuing on. As we entered the arena, you could feel the excitement of the fans. Okay. Now this might be something that we have some polite disagreement on, but they did a shift here in terms of voice. Because in the previous sentence, we're talking about 2 subjects. We're not talking about a singular indirect subject. So, a couple things. We do pause here just before we get too far ahead of ourselves, because we have the prepositional of as we entered the arena. It's telling us when something happened, so as we entered. Then you have the difference of you versus we, because we're talking about the speaker, presumably, in the previous sentence and their brother, then we is the most logical pronoun to be using here, because they're relaying their experience. They're not necessarily trying to poke or prod at the audience here. Then the spelling of excitement, okay? C is adopting what is presumably the S sound, but it does that in a number of different spellings. So just knowing the difference, if you break it out to its root, exit versus excite, just kind of the base word, then you'll know that the spelling is not lining up and it's not correct. So make sure you have the C in between the X and the I there, and then you have the correct word, and it's great. Number 3. So between these 2, you're looking for what's more effective at presenting the idea. Both are trying to get at this concept of seats being expensive and the quality or viewability within the seats not matching up with that price point. Typically, if you pay a lot of money for seats at a concert, at a game, whatever, they're meant to be good. So you want to show the contrast effectively between those two ideas. So we're not going for what is the shortest or most direct in relaying the information. We want contrast. So with that in mind, which one is showing better contrast between cost of tickets and quality of seats, A or B? Answer to yourself really quickly. Okay, it's going to be B. And I'm fairly certain that a lot of you may have gone with A because of our past experiences. It makes sense because this is still somewhat laying out that idea. But again, because the intent is to show that very direct contrast of our expectations here. If you're paying a lot of money, seats should be better, and they're not. So even though our seats were expensive, they weren't very good, using this as the setup in the sentence helps to really illustrate the contrast more effectively, and that's what we're going for. So B is going to be the better option here. Finally, 4 for Monday. Standard English, just a more formal way to do it. And in this case, for the sentence, you'll notice it's not super informal, like stuff we've had in the past that used like a bunch of times, or dude, or bro, or whatever. You know, I can't remember all of the informal English sentences, but you get what I mean. In the case of this sentence, the changes we're going to make are just to elevate the quality of language, to be more formal, which is always the intent here, okay? So the rewrite, still, it was great to see our team defeat their opponents. Not a whole heck of a lot of a difference, but you'll notice that every kind of phrasing or word here is elevated a little bit. So saying something was sweet is usually like a way of saying cool or fun. You can also say great, because that's kind of connected with that experience. Take down the enemy, defeat their opponents, again, is just another way to raise it up a level in terms of like you being articulate. That is to say, you know, sounding very intelligent with how you talk about things or how you write about things. And this is a great way to do it. So if I were to be really picky here, I probably wouldn't use still, because that can be conversational. But like with anything that we've encountered with ATBs, some of the changes can be subjective. You're allowed to disagree, but no matter what your changes are, you need to make a well-reasoned case for it that's based on background knowledge and experience with grammar. So if it were me, I'd probably change this to however, if we're writing about it in a way. So, because I feel like that's more standard. That's just me. Tuesday, number 1. It's difficult to predict which technology is going to be popular and successful. Okay, a couple things sound sticky there when you read it, hopefully. So it's difficult to predict which technology will be popular and successful. Okay, starting here. Even though when we say the word predict, it can sound really close to P-E-R in terms of the spelling. That's, again, a phonetic trick that they're kind of messing with you here. When you're doing prefixes, that's another good way to test it here. You need P-R-E in terms of the spelling. So making sure that you are clear on that. You can always just check per versus pre, just switch out the letters, okay? Technology, again, another spelling or phonetic trick, because TEC does effectively make the sound, but if we know tech as the shorthand for technology, we know that there is the silent H there helping with the C sound, okay? Because again, English is weird, so just making sure you have that silent letter in there. Is gonna be is very informal, as I can somewhat in the distance hear you echoing. Really, the goal is we're trying to be more formal, but also illustrate future progressive tense, because this is something that feasibly will be an ongoing thing beyond the present time. Okay, so saying will be much better than saying is going to be. And then the spelling, you have the suffix ending of FUL, which you tack on usually to base words. And in this case, our base word is success. Now, because we're trying to say full of success, this does kind of make sense, but just knowing to drop that extra consonant letter as it's unnecessary in suffix usage, that just means that this is the spelling of the suffix we're trying to use. We're not going for the full word, as it were. So, number 2. Some people in the 1800s thought the telephone was a silly, worthless idea. Okay, so not a lot to change here either, just a couple of things. Phonetic trick, our old friend. AU can make the desired sound we're going for here, but just understanding that OUGHT is used in a fair amount of words, that's the consistent spelling. If you're reminding yourself of that and you know other words that use this exact pattern of spelling, then you know that this is the correct vowel combination here for the entirety of the word. So try not to get fooled by this, even though it is very tricky. Then you have your two adjectives here, which we know we need to separate because silly's not describing worthless. These are both simultaneously describing the idea, but separate of each other. So making sure you use that punctuation to split them up. Okay, number 3. In 1876, the president of Western Union, the Telegraph Company, said the phone had too many problems to ever be useful. Well, if they could see where we're at with phones now, right? In any case, you have your prepositional or a year here in terms of time, so you need to pause. Then you have somewhat of an introduction and clarifying information to the introduction. So lots of pausing going on here. And this, like I said, is just working to clarify what Western Union was. Telegraph is like the equivalent of a text in olden times, if you can imagine that. But that's all you need for the sentence. And I still find it humorous that they throw in the period here. Not sure why, but maybe it's because they know we know there's supposed to be a period. So last one for the week. So we need to pick out of the 3 options here, which is the best fit for the given sentence and what it's trying to accomplish. He said phones aren't needed because there's plenty of messengers. He said phones aren't needed because there be plenty of messengers. Or he said phones aren't needed because there are plenty of messengers. Okay, so maybe 2 of these sound like viable options, but there's a specific reason why we go with there are. Okay, I'll just get this out of the way. There be, I sounded like a pirate when I read that, so hopefully you get that that does not work. And be is very indirect here. We're not trying to say the singular of is, okay? We're trying to say the plural, which comes over to here. There is, there was, okay, whatever you're trying to say here with that apostrophe S, you would still be focusing in on a singular subject, whereas are is focusing on a multitude, okay? There are plenty of messengers. You have the plural over here, so that dictates which one is going to be the more appropriate option. So that's all I've got for you this week. Again, please, if you can, next Friday, make it for our last ATB breakdown to the live recording. If you are there, I will automatically give you credit for participating in the discussion so long as you are actively participating. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing your questions, thoughts, and our ideas for the 2 that we did this week. So let's get into it.